Yeah, hi, this is Dr. Jaitly. I'm going to be teaching you the basics and fundamentals of cardiology, that is, the study of the heart. Today we are going to talk about, in this section, the inside structure of the heart pertaining to the electrical wiring, with special reference to the wiring within the heart. Did you know that we have electrical wiring within the house? Of course we do. When you flip a switch in the house, when you walk in, the lights come on, the fans come on, the air conditioning comes on, etc., etc. Similarly, I always say the heart is like a house. It has its own plumbing supply, it has its own drainage, it has its walls, it has its doors called the valves, and likewise it also has electrical wiring system called the nerves that travel through the heart. Now, the impulse obviously travels in one direction, and the way it originates is right here at the top of this right upper chamber. Now remember, the heart is four-chambered, as we know, and we also know that it's a pump which circulates blood, and the blood carries oxygen and nutrients throughout the body so humans can carry out the normal functions. But that's the main function of the heart. So the beauty about this is that the heart beats automatically. We have a control over our breathing where we can actually pause or even increase our respirations, or the way we can hyperventilate or hypoventilate. But with the heart, you don't have a control over your heartbeats. So they beat automatically, depending upon the circumstance or the need for the body. So the beat originates here. In other words, the impulse of that nerve, the electrical impulse that we call it, that originates at this, and we call this as a generator point, or a generator, or a pacemaker. And a lot of terminologies, but just bear with me. This is called, for all practical purposes, a pacemaker. It sets the pace of the heart. Now, say the impulse originates here. What will happen next? It'll travel, because it has electrical connections through microscopic and through these fibers of the heart muscle. As you're seeing a cross section here, the impulse starts traveling and comes to a point 2. Now, point 1, let's call it SAN, sinoatrial node. Point 2 is called AVN, called atrioventricular node. That means it's at the junction of the two atria, or the upper chambers, and the ventricles, which are the bottom chambers. So it's called the atrioventricular node. So point 1, it travels to point 2. Next, there's a little delay here, and then it comes to there are a bundle of branches that sort of wired together, and they're all traveling like, along this wall, or along the septum, we call it, the divider between these two rooms. And it's a very, very beautiful way of conducting the whole wiring within the house, or within the heart. It travels to point 3, and that's called bundle of His. His is named after a doctor or scientist, so he was a Dr. His, and therefore it's called bundle of His. It's a bundle of nerves that travel from AV node, or AVN, to bundle of His, that's point 3. And from hence on, they will divide into the right side and travel and stimulate the right ventricle, and this will stimulate the left ventricle. Now, it's a very concerted way, again, as I always point out, that the cardiac cycle entails that the top chambers contract first, because obviously the impulse is originating here, so impulse will go from 1 to 2. So it follows that automatically these muscles will generate a contractility earlier than these ventricles, because the impulse will travel here later. Even though it takes only a fraction of a second, mind you, it's traveling at lightning speed. But the fact is that these will contract earlier because they are stimulated earlier. The impulse is already here before it's here. And number 4 is the place where they divide into tiny fibers, and they're called Purkinje fibers. Just for the sake of the name, you can remember them as Purkinje fibers if you like, or just microscopic fibers, which are interspersed between these muscle walls on either side. But the important part is that the direction of flow is in this direction, and then finally up to this area. So the upper chambers will contract first, get to the bottom of the chambers, and then it moves down. The impulse travels down like that, stimulates this part of the ventricle, this part of the ventricle next, and then stimulate the other parts of the ventricle as we go up, as the impulse travels back and around. And this repeats over and over again, and that generates a cardiac cycle, or the mechanics of the cycle that will follow through, which is contractility of the heart muscle. So it's an amazing feat that's constantly happening within the heart, and one should make a real commendation on this, that how wonderful all of this is really created in us. And let's discuss more in details in my next talks. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed this part of the talk.